All right, we are awaiting a press conference out of Missouri this afternoon. We're waiting to hear from the governor there, Jay Nixon, and as to the latest that is happening in Ferguson and the developments expected, the latest on what could feasibly be happening tonight, if there are any changes as far as security. And there's the governor. Let's listen.
I want to first start by thanking all the elected officials and faith leaders here with us for their work over the past week. On behalf of the family of Michael, the entire St. Louis region. The tragic shooting death of Michael Brown 1 week ago today, and the events that followed, left a family grieving the loss of a son, a community racked by fear and unrest, and an entire world looking for answers and justice. Over the past several days, I've heard from the people of Ferguson. I've heard their anger about injustice and intimidation. I've seen and heard the unspeakable sadness of a mother who won't see her son again, and the anguish of parents throughout the region, struggling to teach their kids to trust among so much strife. But like all the world, I've also seen over the past few days tremendous acts of grace, generosity, and courage. People of all races and creeds joining hands to pray for justice for the family of Michael Brown. And just last night, the courage and resolve of peaceful protesters who stood up against violent instigators. Volunteers coming out, coming forward, even in this morning's steady rain, to help their neighbors pick up the pieces. As governor, I'm committed to making sure the forces of peace and justice prevail. That is why early in the week I called on the Department of Justice to conduct an independent investigation of the shooting death of Michael Brown. An investigation, I'm glad to say, is being beefed up with additional FBI agents canvassing this area over the next several days. I want to personally thank General Holder. We had a good, thoughtful discussion yesterday, and I appreciate deeply his leadership and support. And that is why 2 days ago, as we saw escalation and the need change and shift, I put the Missouri State Highway Patrol in charge of maintaining safety and security in Ferguson. I want to personally thank Captain Ron Johnson for his outstanding leadership in helping bring calm to the streets of Ferguson while maintaining the rights of its citizens to engage in peaceful protest. That balance is important. The First Amendment is extremely important. In action times like this, people being able to speak their concerns is vitally important. As a result of those actions, we've begun to see progress. On Thursday night, peaceful protesters of all ages, races, and creeds here in Ferguson and in cities and towns across the nation, 80 separate cities, called in one united voice for justice to be served. And last night, except for a very few, the folks out in the streets of Ferguson last night were peaceful demonstrators. But we also saw a pattern develop last night where after hours of peaceful protesting, small groups took to the streets with the intent of committing crimes and endangering citizens. That is unacceptable. Each step of the way this week, I've been in touch with these local leaders. I just met once again with them to discuss the best course forward. I share their frustration and their conviction that we cannot allow the ill will of the few to undermine the goodwill of the many and continue to put the people and businesses of this community in danger. If there was an easy way to separate those who hurt from those who help, we would. But it's hard. Sometimes, especially at night, we can't. So to protect the people and property of Ferguson today, I signed an order declaring a state of emergency and ordering the implementation of a curfew in the impacted area of Ferguson. Again, this is not to silence the people of Ferguson or this region or others, but to contain those who are drowning out the voice of the people with their actions. We will not allow a handful of looters to endanger the rest of this community. We still need more answers about what happened 1 week ago at Campfield Green, and I will continue to push for those answers and demand transparency and accountability and expediency. I will tell you there's a lot of people working on that right now, a lot of people. But if we're going to achieve justice, we must first have and maintain peace. This is a test. The eyes of the world are watching. This is a test of whether a community, this community, any community, can break the cycle of fear, distrust, and violence, and replace them with peace, strength, and ultimately justice. It will not happen in one night. But that is where we will start. So tonight, let that journey continue. And in the morning, this community will rise with the sun to renew its quest for justice. Now, to go through a couple of the operational choices, then we'll hear from a couple of officials. This challenging time, it is nice to have veterans of law enforcement working in a coordinated fashion. The task that we have at hand, the task for which I have been tasked to lead, is the task, first of all, to represent the people of the state and the people of this area, but also to make sure that we have peace and security. Let us go through the decisions that have been made and the implementation of that, and in order to begin that process, then we'll hear from officials and we'll be glad to take questions. Let me first introduce to you the Colonel of the Missouri State Highway Patrol, Colonel Ron Reppogle. Colonel Reppogle.
Thank you, Governor. I command 1,240 troopers from Jefferson City, Missouri, where our headquarters is at. I cannot solve this problem from Jeff City, Missouri. The trait of a good leader is recognizing the resources that he has to put at play when problems come up. 2 days ago, I placed Captain Ron Johnson in command of the Highway Patrol operations here in Ferguson, Missouri. He is the most outstanding resource that I, as the Colonel of the Missouri State Highway Patrol, can bring to this problem in Ferguson, Missouri. I think you've seen his actions over the last 2 days. I think you have seen what he's capable of, and I'm going to turn this over to him. He's been here for 12 years as a troop commander in this area. He grew up in this community. He knows this community. He can far better solve this problem than I can from Jeff City. So I'm going to turn the podium over to him, and he's going to announce the plan for this curfew and how we're going to bring peace back to this community. Captain Johnson.
Good afternoon. I have been tasked to provide security for the people of this community, allow them the right to speak, allow them the right to express their feelings. As far as the investigation, that is not my task. That's not the task of the Highway Patrol. The governor has enacted a curfew to allow us to provide safety for the citizens of Ferguson, but also to maintain the right of the people. That curfew will start today. It will run from 12 midnight is when the curfew will start to 5 in the morning. We will enforce that curfew in an effort to provide safety and security to the area. Before I go on any further, there's some things that when I was out yesterday in the crowd that I was asked about. And I've been promising that I will talk, I will communicate. The things that we talk about behind closed doors, I will communicate with you. There was some talk about having more eyes on this investigation. And I can tell you this morning, at about 9 o'clock this morning, the FBI brought 40 agents in and went to the Campfield area and went door to door to try to find other witnesses that may have been a part or saw the incident. They contacted several witnesses, and they went to several homes where people weren't there. The homes that they went to and people weren't there, they left this card. They've also passed this card out to clergy, and if you are a witness or you have any information, you can contact your clergy. You can look on the door of your home and you will see this card. But I would ask that if you fill out this card, make sure you're filling out with some valid information. Let's just not send a lot of cards which invalidates those that have valuable information to make sure that the proper justice is done in this case. I'll answer any questions, but I can't tell you that the past few days I have seen a great people stand up with a lot of pride. I've seen people, great people stand up and speak their voice. I've seen people show compassion toward each other, strengthen each other, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is the positive impact that our community is showing on this nation, and we will survive this, and we will make a change.
If I could, before we get to lengthy questions, I committed, first of all, to our host to make sure that he had the right to speak. And I want to thank personally Representative, Reverend, friend Tommy Pearson. This is your house that we are in, the Lord's house, and I would ask if you'd like to make any comments before we will take questions. We'll be glad to take questions.
Thank you, Governor, and